Lovely. Okay. So, okay, we're live. Hello again. Welcome to the meeting. I do not believe that we need introductions for that meeting. We know each other. Any objections to that? No. Okay.
Yeah, you might want to take a roll call, or is Esther going to take it from the attendance?
I would suggest we now record formally the apologies for absence. Esther, if you could kindly read them out again.
Yeah, so we've had apologies from Councillor Mackenzie Boyle, Councillor Brown, Councillor Hayes and Councillor Mike Forster.
Okay, and we're missing Councillor O'Regan, Councillor Watts. Okay, okay, thank you. Agenda item 2, moving forward, that's the declarations of interest. You have seen the the declarations of interest on agenda paper as item 2. So have I. Do you have any? Does anybody here has any declarations of interest, disclosable pecuniary interest or an affected interest? With the exception of me, I'll do my declaration after you all.
No.
Okay, all good. So I have the affected interests that are from time to time in my role as engineer undertake works for Thames Water within my company. Okay, that's that, I believe. Okay, so moving on. Agenda item 3 is public participation, and Esther, you confirmed there are no requests for public participation?
I can confirm we haven't had any requests for any public participation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4, the Thames Water Review Scope. That's the point of us being here. Excuse me. Just to make you aware, because this is not a formal council meeting, but an overview and scrutiny meeting, the rules are slightly different. So we can vote tonight, and the vote will be recorded. I intend to put the paper as basically I tend to have a vote at the end of this meeting, if appropriate, if you're not completely distracted, to confirm the scope which we want to pursue in the course of our review. So I checked it with Esther. It's okay. So do not be confused if I ask for a vote. It's all above board. Agenda item 4, the Thames Water Review Scope. So you recall our vote on in the oversight and scrutiny main overview and scrutiny main meeting, apologies, on August the 16th, that we want to go for option B for the engagement with the council motion from July the 12th. We have agreed a scrutiny review on Thames Water with the revised scope for this review to be undertaken by the Environment and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel in line with normal commissioning processes. For the panel to produce a report to the executive, for the executive to report to council. So we are committed to that. That's good. We had a couple of follow-up discussions and decision and agreed on a draft scope, which we have now circulated a couple of times. It has been, it is at the moment at revision 3. You have all received this revision. I've got it printed out. Apologies. Anybody want to say something? No, it was just an echo then, apologies. What I will do now is read out the scope, start to end. It's just 1.5 pages. We will then have a discussion point by point and check if we want to make any changes. Discuss and record the changes. At the end of this discussion, I will read out the version which we have then obtained at this point. And at the end of the meeting, we will have a vote. I hope everybody's in line with agreed with that. Adrian, your hand.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it possible to share your slides or share your version of the document at all, so we don't keep switching between
Of course I can. It's just
thanks.
problematic because I have only one screen here and I'm missing your faces, which is unfortunate.
Thanks.
Okay, 1 second. I'll just put it in, share it here. Come on, where is it? Right. Okay, so you should be seeing that.
Yeah, everyone can see that.
Good. I will make the changes in this. This is draft 4 in this version of the board of the report. Track changes is on, and we can make comments as we want. I'm not sure if, well, I shared it with you. I'm not sure if you can work in it at the moment. Very likely you will have to make changes later as a follow-up, or comments later as a follow-up if you want to make any comments. Okay, I'll start reading. I'll do my best. Reason for the review. August 16, 2023, the Communities Environment Panel of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission discussed the recommendation agreed at Council on 12 July 2023 that Overview and Scrutiny should work with other local authorities across Thames Valley to challenge failures of Thames water and minimize environmental damage. It was agreed to undertake a scrutiny review on Thames water with a revised scope compared to the full text of the Council motion. While evaluating the scope of the review, it became clear that the interfaces between stakeholders are manifold. This document outlines a summary work plan. Recognizing a staged approach to delivery might be required. Objectives, scope, key questions, which options are available to Bracknell Forest Council to effect changes resulting in a reduced frequency and impact of Thames water operational sewage discharges. What collaboration opportunities with other affected local authorities exist? First stage of review will identify the interface between Bracknell Forest Council, the parish councils, and residents with Thames Water and other agencies. Reach out and identify local and regional stakeholders to start engage with the cross-border forum for coordination with Thames Water. Establish an overview over the regulatory framework in which Bracknell Forest Council and other stakeholders operate regarding Thames Water. Second stage of the review will gather evidence to support the development of recommendations. Third stage of the review will develop recommendations for a persistent cross-borough framework dealing with Thames water to minimize sewer discharges, develop recommendations linked to sewage management for Bracknell Forest Council to ensure information available from Thames water is considered in management of public spaces as well as planning, including the development of local plans or local neighborhood plans. Consider the impact of climate change on the wastewater system, identify requirements to ensure resilience. The review will do this by identifying links between Thames Water, Bracknell Forest Council through planning, drainage, and environmental maintenance, identify external stakeholder interfaces such as community groups, NGOs, Ofwat, Environment Agency, Thames Water. Undertake a high-level availability review of potential mitigations such as storage tanks, increased monitoring, alert systems on discharge events to inform the discussion with Thames Water. Establish contact to neighboring boroughs across the Thames Valley to initiate cross-borough collaboration and identify adoptable best practice. Interviewing key witnesses, including representatives from Bracknell Forest Council and Thames Water, understand the planned investments on Thames Water in the area and impact on pollution, identify a best-case scenario for the long-term outcome of the engagement process. Out of scope would be direct engagement with individual local issues, such as regular local sewer failures. At the conclusion of this work, the panel will produce a report highlighting its findings and propose recommendations to the executive. Delivery methods, best practice from other boroughs, interviewing key witnesses, focus groups, desktop analysis of research and data. Just sticking with the council team, that's fine. The review due March 2024, which I believe brings me to a point which I would like to raise before we kick off, to keep in the back of your mind. Because, okay, we'll do. The first thing which I would like to highlight is that, Kevin, you suggested that it might be a bit over-ambitious because fundamentally we do not have an overview and scrutiny meeting in March. So the delivery in March looks a bit, it would be either delivered in February or we would deliver April or May. Now, the said, delivering later, very much later, is perhaps a bit too late but we need to manage expectations a bit. So Kevin, I realize you have your hand up, I believe. Yep. You suggested to split it in two and have the scope, split the scope a little bit. Would you want to say something to that effect, Kevin, or would you want me to carry on?
Yes, Chair, if I could just advise the panel. So our normal reviews are either sort of a one and done review, so one meeting, hear evidence and conclude. So that will be looking at, say, a policy and commenting on a policy. We also have a sort of a larger review, which is sort of a 2 or 3 month review, which in effect allows for a period of investigation, a period of hearing evidence, and then delivering a report. This feels like a larger report, but clearly at a certain size, the review can go on for years and years and years and never bring forward any recommendations. So my advice to the panel would be to look at this scope and say, if that's the totality of what the review panel wants to look at, to then break it into workable chunks so that actually you can do a period of investigation on an element, have a meeting where you can have your witnesses come and give evidence to that meeting, then have a final meeting to write that evidence up and make recommendations, and those recommendations could then go on to another review. A very similar process was done with this panel around enforcement strategy, where the panel looked at the totality of the council's enforcement activities and then in effect did a review to work out the scope of a review. And that worked really well in terms of, one, being able to bring recommendations forward quite quickly of things which were obvious, but also allowed the panel to narrow down on what was it that around enforcement that they particularly wanted to look at and then bring forward recommendations. So simply, I think, break it into workable chunks, but it will take up a sizable amount of this panel's 4-year programme as you take this subject on board.
Thank you, Kevin. I think the proposal was to fundamentally split it along the key questions which we have here. This is basically question 1, and this would be, just mark it differently, question 2. Is that correct, Kevin? That was your suggestion or idea?
I think that works, Chair. I think I just gave the advice, and I think that was then, I don't know if Esther gave the specific in terms of splitting, but I think clearly there's a point where the larger the witness pool and the fact of once you go outside a certain number of witnesses, then just coordinating and getting those meetings in the diary will delay what you're looking at. So it's really thinking about what can you make sure can happen this side of Christmas. And so if taking those different chunks allows you to do that would work.
Yeah, I believe Adrian, I see you have your hand up. Give me 1 second, please. I believe the groundwork for both questions is very comparable. I do not believe that we need to really split the initial first steps. We need to keep it clearly. We need to keep clear records, which allows us to map our findings to the question A or question B. There will be overlap. We need to accept that, but it might really be a good opportunity to give a more precise and targeted feedback to council early on. With this proposal, we would be aiming for the 29th of February 2024 for the first report back to council on question 1, and very likely aim for the 4th of April 2024 for the collaboration part 2. Okay. Adrian, thank you for your patience. You have the floor.
Yeah, so I like the idea of splitting. That seems to make sense. I'm not sure about these actual questions for that split, though. I think we do. There's a fundamental issue that we don't actually know exactly what the problem is yet, and we need to sort of scope out what the problem is, and that would then sort of lead on to what the following work would be. So we don't know exactly where the leaks are, how frequently they are, or anything about them that much yet. And that's maybe something we need to look at first. I was thinking.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrian. So your comment on that is that, okay, let's get cracking. Keep in back of the mind that the might split it into two parts, but let's see how it goes initially. For I'd say maybe the end October, mid-November, and at least until the first, and until we report back to overview and scrutiny on the 30th of November, where we will do our first dump off of progress to them. Would that be your proposal, roughly?
Yeah, as long, and we actually find out what the actual issue is first.
Yeah.
How big is this problem? How many areas have we got leaks going on? How frequently and stuff like that. Yeah, and then get that on early, and then from that we can build to where we're going to go next.
Okay. No, thank you. I invite any other comments, please, on the call. Okay, thank you, Adrian. I think your proposal makes sense. Personally, I haven't put enough work into this, the whole effort at the moment to really understand what's the full outcome. I have a vision, but that's maybe not adequate to confirm it one way or another. So, Kevin, if you're okay with that, we postpone the decision for a little bit, keeping it in mind as a definite recommendation and noticing your concerns, and would report back in the course of mid-November. Excuse me, mid-November.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Adrian?
Yeah, a couple of other points regarding the actual reason for the review. And in scope, we haven't actually said exactly what the problem is. We've said that Thames water are causing the environmental issue, but it's not the fact that that we're actually getting these leaks which are going into our waterways and causing quality issues.
Adrian, apologies. That's what I want to do in the next step. I just read through initially very, very quickly, so we have it on the record what we're talking about. Now we'll go through the document, not line by line, but paragraph by paragraph, and I want you to make your comments at this point, if that's all right. Okay, so starting with the reason for the review. Does anybody have an observation on the reason for the review? We want to challenge the phase of Thames water and minimize environmental damage. That's the core thing, isn't it? Adrian?
Yeah,
Andrew?
okay, so
you go first. Andrew comes second.
One of the issues for the review is part of the biodiversity action plan actually has an objective that we should be actually trying to help the river cuts, which is where lots of the overflows are happening from the Binfield sites, achieve good ecological potential by 2027. That's objective G in the wetland theme of the current BAP. So, there is actually a theme that we should be trying to do it for that reason as well. So that can also be part of the reason for doing this. Yeah, it was not something which was, Adrian, thank you. It was not something which was discussed in the original motion in council, and it was so far not discussed in the other meetings. So I'm a bit, how to say, reluctant to introduce that as a headline item at this stage of the review. I believe our scope, however, is absolutely adequate to look into this detail. We are committing to this level of review, as will become apparent a bit further down. So I personally have zero objections to look into this particular aspect, and I think it's definitely worthy, and we should cover that as far as we can. The but is I would not want to put it into the reason for review or in the key questions. This should be very concise from my point of view. Are you okay with that, Adrian? Is that something you can live with? Yeah, I can live with that, yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, just 2 points. Just following on from Adrian's, I think probably, Adrian, what you would use, that would be part of the evidence you'd gather through the review. So you'd use that as part of the inputs into the review when you're hearing evidence, etc. But going back to your earlier point, In terms of the reasons for the review, I think it was particularly related to discharges of sewage into river water. So it's the water quality point, which isn't quite clear there. It just says the failures of Thames Water and to minimise environmental damage. But it's the failures of Thames Water and discharges into our water courses and the environmental damage that is causing, I think, is probably closer to the truth.
So you would suggest that the discharges into the water courses should feature in the reason?
That was the reason. From my hearing of the discussion at council, that was the driving force behind it. So I just think it may just need to be a bit clearer on that.
Andrew, that's correct. I think this is also that was the message which we went out on the street towards the residents, that it's the pollution which Thames Water causes to our local river systems, which is unacceptable fundamentally, and we need to do something about that. If the minimized environmental damage is inadequate to capture this, I'm happy to make an amendment to that. As proposed. I'm just putting it in here. Sorry.
That looks good to me.
Yeah. By is not the right proposition, I think. Something like that. Right. I'll have a additional read through, but I hope people. Oh, Nahid, apologies. I just saw you have your hand up. Apologies. I didn't see that when I was in the Word file.
It's okay, no problem. It's not only the contamination of the water and environmental damage, but what about also the human health? We've seen the contamination of drinking water, what kind of serious hazard that poses with the relation to outbreaks of Legionnaires' disease. Sorry, I'm not being able to pronounce the word. So its impact also on human life and human health, not only just the environment.
Impact on residents. Would you be? I added and impact on residents, which is might be seen as containing that. I know fully of what you're talking about, Nahid. I had many residents complaining that dogs fell sick when swimming in the River Blackwater and in Horseshoe Lake, and it's also a health risk. Yep. I just want to make it, keep it a bit general at this point and go into more detail further down in the scope document. Would you be happy with that change? Nahid, does it capture your concerns?
Yes, my mic was off. I said, yes, that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Okay, super. Okay, while evaluating the scope of the review, it became clear that the interface between stakeholders are manifold. This document outlines a summary work plan recognizing a staged approach to delivery might be required. I guess there are no comments on that. We have now two key questions, and Adrian, this is where your concerns, I believe, come in. Question one, which options are available to Bracknell Forest Council to effect changes resulting in reduced frequency and impact of Thames Water operational sewage discharges? The operational is an effect of our last meeting, September the 20th, which Esther has minuted to differentiate it from accidental sewage discharges. I had a previous chat with Andrew where he highlighted there's a different sphere of responsibility between damage to the system and the normal normal operation of the system, which within its license conditions. Also, please welcome Councillor Hayes. Hey, Dorothy. Welcome. Good evening. Dorothy Hayes has joined the meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry I was late. I had the WI ladies of Bracknell talking about waste. Not the waistline, but waste in itself.
Okay.
But I did want to come in and listen in. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dorothy. Okay, so key questions. So which options are available to Bracknell Forest Council to affect changes resulting in reduced frequency and impact of Thames water operational sewage discharges? Any comments, please? I mean, if we're still happy with the wording, I don't see a particular problem. It gives us enough flexibility and to jump on the issues which we will identify in the course of a first stage of the review. Because Adrian, I think this is what you also pointed out. We don't quite know our scope yet. We are not fully sure we understand it yet, but this gives us a bit of flexibility while being true to the spirit of the original council motion. Adrian, please.
Yeah, I guess we still don't know exactly what the problem is. So here we're talking about what changes can we do, but it's what changes can we do, but what's the problem that's going to necessitate these changes, sort of thing. Is it sort of management changes? Is it physical changes? You know, what is it that is causing this?
I mean, I think it's generally well known what the fundamental problem is, because Thames Water, I think, operates strictly within its license conditions. I do not believe that Thames Water will at any point be outside the law and the legal framework. The problem is very likely the framework, which we as councillors are. I think it's largely on a national level, this problem. However, there might be influence through, for example, better consideration of sealing of land in planning, better consideration of how the sewage network can actually cope with new development, better signposting of operational discharges, and fundamentally better communication, where the council might have some flexibility to do something. However, as you said, Adrian, at the moment, nobody really knows. And I think it's the core outcome of our review will be to provide a clear, I wouldn't say a recipe, but to illustrate to council what can be done, what can't be done, and also communicate to the residents to make sure that they understand why we can only do so much and not really solve the problem locally.
Okay, I don't believe we actually do understand yet what the discharges are. So we did have a visit to Thames Water early in the year, and they've got a series of tanks, and obviously the water comes in and it kind of propagates through the tanks that goes along. They actually said that it should take 18 hours for water first entering before it's fully processed and goes out the other side. When you get the heavy rainfall, it causes this whole process to speed up, and inadvertently they have to sort of just let stuff out before it's fully processed.
Yeah.
So we don't know how much pollution is in the water that's being released. They record the times when it is actually releasing, so they know when it might be releasing, but it might be just releasing a drip during that time, or it could be gushing out. So we don't understand the quantity of that's being reduced, being released, nor do we know the amount of sewage that's actually in there, or the quality of water that's being reduced. So there's kind of lots of aspects about it which we don't understand yet.
Yeah, that's correct as well. That's correct. I think this is something which we might want to look into. I notice Kevin has his hand up. Kevin, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, just Chair, just to caution the panel. There's lots of things panels can look into, but I would start with what powers or where do you think your recommendations are going to be, and then work back from those. So I think I was describing to each of the chairs and panel chairs, there are some things that you could simply say, I don't know, take any subject, global subject, and you could do a review on that global subject. But then when it comes down to what powers or what's your recommendations going to be on, you need to know that you've got the power to make that recommendation, or the recommendation you're going to make to someone who will act on that recommendation. So work back from where you think, you know, if the who's the decision maker that you're trying to influence, and is it a decision maker that you have influence over and will take your view on board? Because we could write to Thames Water today and say, please stop polluting. You have that power, but will that achieve the outcome that you're looking for?
No.
So I would think about where your powers are, who are you putting levels of influence on, and then use that to work back to say that's the scope of what you're trying to review and what you're trying to look at.
Yeah, and hence I think this is the key question. We don't know what options are available to Bracknell Forest Council at the moment. Adrian, you correctly commented that we might also not know the effects of what's actually happening, but that might be another recommendation to Bracknell Forest Council to somehow get hold of this information, or ensure that Thames Water produces this information for us, or the Environment Agency produces this information for us. I think it's an important point to say, okay, we don't know it, but I don't think we can fix it. We can make recommendations to council, what to look into, what options do they have. So I think this aspect, which you just highlighted, Adrian, would not require a change to this key question. I don't see you nodding, Adrian. You're looking very serious.
Sorry, I was reading and thinking. Okay.
Okay, I'm a bit conscious about time. I think we are we are at risk of overrunning significantly. So, if you don't mind, I'd move on to the next point. The other aspect which you want to touch on is, or which we want to advise the council, is what collaboration opportunities with other affected local authorities exist. I believe we are agreed on that. Noticing we have to flesh it out. Okay. I'll move on. If you want to go back to something, raise your hand and so on, but I'll just move on. If you have a comment, always happy to hear that. First stage of the review will identify the interface between Bracknell Forest Council, the Parish Council, and residents for Thames Water and other agencies. I allocated that definitely to part one of the review, what we want to do early on, if we split it formally in two. Okay, next bullet point is reach out and identify local and regional stakeholders to start engage with a cross-borough forum for coordination with Thames Water. This might sit partially in part two. There's no very likely the stakeholder identification will come out of the wash when we do our identify the interfaces. Bullet point 3, establish an overview over the regulatory framework in which Bracknell Forest Council and other stakeholders operate regarding Thames Water. Here, again, this is part 1. This will be a review of the Stockport review, which Esther has sourced. So we have a work already partially done for us. This is quite a complex matter, and we are lucky to have this initial document as a starting point. We will review everything in it to make sure that it's that it applies to Bracknell Forest Council. However, it's a starting point. I think this is one of the big things which we can deliver to our council very early on. That's the thing which we will talk about on February the 29th, very likely. Second stage of the review will gather evidence to support development of recommendations. We're aiming still for the February the 29th. Third stage of the review will develop recommendation for persistent cross-borrow framework dealing with Thames water to minimize sewage discharges. This is a pushback slightly later activity for reporting back. I think we can, for example, start the engagement process early on. However, I think we will have to focus on other activities, recognizing if we're dealing with other local authorities, we need to accept their timing as well. They will not jump just because we say jump. Third stage will also review, develop recommendations linked to sewage management for Bracknell Forest Council to ensure information available from Thames Water is considered in management of public spaces, as well as planning, including the development of local plans or local neighborhood plans. I think this gives us enough. Oh, Andrew, you have your hand up. Apologies, I didn't see that.
The only thing I'd just say on that is local neighbourhood plans are at the discretion of parish councils, and what they include may not have any relationship to sewage and water. So the control that you would have, you might be able to make some recommendations, but the control would be limited.
Yeah, no, fair point. But you know, our our councillors in Crowthorne, which are very house proud, I'd say, and I think which will have an all-encompassing local neighbourhood plan. And if not, they'll quite likely adopt what we say anyway. Regardless, I want it's in there because of Councillor Mackenzie Boyle wanted it in there. I see no reason not to have it in. And recognize, Andrew, thanks for your advice. I recognize it's not a mandatory push thing, but it's something which is available. It's a pull thing for the towns and parishes to take on board or not. Third point, to consider the impact of climate change on the wastewater system and identify requirements to ensure resilience. This is actually quite important because I also studied the council plan. I didn't find anything in the the last bullet point on climate change on resilience, which I found a bit disconcerting and surprising, to be honest. Because resilience in this context means that we need to accept that the rainfall events will be more concentrated. So we might get the same amount of rainfall over the year, but we will get much higher peaks and troughs, which puts a higher stress on the sewage system because it needs to, it simply doesn't have the storage. And this is why we're also seeing these overflows increasing in the last couple of years, I think. Okay. I'll just move on. If there are no further comments here at the moment. And, the review will do this by identifying links between Thames Water and Bracknell Forest Council through planning, drainage, environmental maintenance, etc. Identify external stakeholder interfaces such as community groups, NGOs, Ofwat, Environment Agency, Thames Water again. Undertake a high-level availability review of potential mitigations such as storage tanks, increased monitoring, alert system on discharge events to inform discussion with Thames Water. This is in particular, this is really very high level. This relies on Thames Water telling us what they could do in principle if they had the time and money. We'll just want to have some background to say, is it credible what they're doing or what are other councils doing? In particular, alarm systems, there are some examples around where such stuff has been installed. Establish contact with neighboring boroughs across the Thames Valley to initiate cross-borough collaboration and identify adoptable best practice. We know that Wokingham is pretty, I wouldn't say hot, but they had engagement with Thames Water last year or early this year. They had a visit from a Thames Water middle management man who gave him a 2-hour presentation and said everything's nice and we can't do anything about it anyway, so bye-bye. It's on YouTube. It wasn't particularly helpful. However, we don't want to get into that situation. You also want to interview key witnesses, including representatives from Bracknell Forest Council and Thames Water. this will not be a tribunal or anything. This is really an interview. We also need to be careful to be respectful of the people on the other side of the fence. These are people doing a job and working. So it's a don't shoot the messenger thing. So I hope everyone is happy with that. Very important, understand the planned investments of Thames Water in the area and its impact on pollution. Because the crucial thing is, Adrian, as you pointed out, that there's no storage capacity. Storage capacity is absolutely required as a buffer, in particular with the effects of climate change, to impose the resilience. Then understanding the planned investments. However, I think we all have picked up in the news that the utility providers ask for 90 billion more pounds of consumer money to keep their act together. So I'm not optimistic we will see planned investment from Thames Water, but we can ask the question and we can note the answer. And this is the last, that's the blue sky thinking point. Identify a best case scenario for the long-term outcome of the engagement process. What do we want? What's the ideal outcome for Bracknell Forest? What do we want to have achieved if everything, if the stars align, if the money is flowing freely? What's the outcome? We want to have clean rivers, a clean environment, really and only in emergency overspill into the environment. We want good communication, a clear understanding of the investment strategy of Thames Water. We want to understand this. We want to have a strategy how to consider sewage capacity and planning, and ideally bring it all together into the local plan. Maybe this is our blue sky thinking bullet point. We don't have to do much about that if we run out of time or we don't feel like that, but I would like to have it on the agenda to make sure that we can put some, maybe not provocative, but outward-looking proposals in. And we do not look into individual local issues like this sewer at Road A overspills every 5 days, and what can you do? Because it would distract too much, and it's a different problem. I think Andrew advised about that. It's a damage. It's not operation within its normal operations of the system within its normal framework. So you all have been very quiet. I hope I haven't railroaded you too much. Adrian, please.
Yeah, go on. Just on that last point about normal operation versus damage. I guess there are some instances where we're not actually sure what's the case there. Particularly, well, in some of the areas in the north of the borough, we have sort of some overflows that are going on, not where there's leaks coming out, particularly in heavy rain. And you know, is it a case of we've just built too many sort of properties around there, and the sewers are 20 odd years old, or maybe more in some cases, and they just aren't built to cope with that. So you know, we don't actually know what their capacity is as such. Thames Water say, yeah, it's fine, but
well, if they overspill, I mean, what can happen, I think, is a discharge into the trailing end of your sewage works if you have the rainfall events. But this is diluted effluent. This is not raw sewage, and what you're describing is that's a different beast, isn't it? It's front end of the sewage works, isn't it?
I guess it's raw sewage, but due to water that's getting into the sewage system and sort of pushing it all out. So this is not actually at the processing plant. This is in the sewers that getting that way. So
okay, that's nothing which I can advise on directly.
It's just narrow sorts of uncertainty there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think we. On balance, I'd suggest to leave it in because this refers to individual local issues. It does not refer to a systematic issue, which is, for example, undersizing of a sewer, or a maintenance issue, which is not a local issue like road here, road there, but it's a more global issue, lack of maintenance. I think we can interpret that in a way we see fitting, depending on how we go ahead. Dorothy, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to get in just now when you were talking about the raw sewage. in the northern parts. One of the
Yeah.
problems there is the ditch, and a lot of the properties or the ones with land up there do not have main sewage as such, and they join into one another. And we ended up just recently substantial amounts of problems around, if you know the area at all, where oak tree nurseries are. At the and we ended up with the environmental agency coming down and having to have a look to see at the problems. And again, it's the amount of buildings that they say they put their lines in, the amount of housing that's been allowed in the greener parts and then joining up, and the pressure on the area. And it was raw sewage, and it was the drainage coming from a new development. It is something we should be looking through, as Andrew knows. Planning is a vital part of that.
We have it on the agenda, and I think I've seen the documents. I think, Dorothy, I can't recall whether you shared it or Councillor Berger shared it, but I have seen it and I've read it, and thank you very much for them. It's very very helpful and illustrating.
It was 2017. You might want to send it around to other members just to have a look at, to say it, to start enlightening yourself before you start thinking of changing. You need to look at what we were able to achieve and try and still to achieve.
I mean, we can look into that in once we have agreed on the scope. At the moment, I want to get the whole thing on the road, Dorothy, and make some progress, because we're still with the scope, and it's already October, isn't it?
Do send around that 2017 document that I sent you, just to give enlightening to others. Okay.
Okay, I'll have a look. I'll think about it. Okay. Provisionally, the review is due March 2024, but we do not have overview and scrutiny in March 2024. So this date needs to change regardless. So I would, at the moment, make it February, April 2024 and go with that. Again, subject to firming it up by mid-November. Yeah, I hope you're right with that. Cool. Any other comments on the scope for now? Good, thank you. Good. We have an agenda item 5, discussion of review methodology. I noticed that we have run out of time. We're already overrunning, and we have touched on review methodology already. Would the attendees be happy with me dropping this agenda item for tonight? Okay. Thank you. If you would mind, I would like to ask for a vote on the agenda which we have so far. If this is accepted as a working, but basically accepted as our accepted as the work program, I will as the basis for the work program, I will clean it up, incorporate, basically remove the comments, send you through a clean version. And you will have then the opportunity to say yes or no or comment again. However, I would like to propose this as a final draft. If you're happy with that, kindly raise your hand. Thank you very much. I'm for it as well, by the way. Dorothy, I didn't see you. Apologies, Dorothy. Are you for or against this draft?
I will go with you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
No pleasure. Sorry, it was just I'm having a problem with the IT at the moment. This new
don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. That was it for me. Do we have any other business? Okay. then thank you very much, Andrew.
Sorry,
Adrian,
yeah.
apologies.
Could I just ask what the process is for this scope for now? Where does it go for now? What happens next, and what's the next steps for us?
We have the experts on the call. I think the next thing is that I clean it up, send it through, and to Kevin and Esther. And well, then I don't know. It's my first round as a counselor here. Kevin, please.
So, Chair, because this is heading slightly ahead of the main programme, and so in one sense sits outside of the main programme, what we will do is Andrew Hunter, as the exec director for Place, has agreed to sponsor this. So he'll give his expert response to the draft when it's put to him. So there's a little section on there for him to comment on. I will ask Esther to put the work schedule to, so we can get the meeting rhythm documented. We will then get that circulated back to this panel to sign off, and off you go. In terms of highlights and updates, the Commission has already commissioned this piece of work, so it doesn't need to go back to the Commission. But Chair, I understand that you will be from time to time updating the Commission as to progress, and obviously the Executive are also doing a piece of work, and they're also doing that on a sub-regional basis. So I'm sure that you will be in contact with the leader who's leading that piece of work, just to make sure that the review has got, I want to say clear blue water, but I'm not completely convinced that's what it will be. But there is a space within what you're doing and what the executive is doing, so that actually you can achieve your objectives and have good recommendations. So we'll put a timetable behind this. The exec director will provide his comments, but in all sense, it's really about when your next public meeting will be, which hopefully will be where you'll be looking at the evidence pack, which is the first stage, and agreeing your witness list, which will be the two big next steps, I think.
Yep. So from that, the action for me is update this draft, share it with you, Kevin, and you, Esther, so you can then communicate it to Andrew, wait for his comments. In the meantime, I'll start drafting our internal work program. There's plenty of stuff on the agenda which you want to look into. This is obviously, we are flexible with that, and it's open to suggestions, and you can obviously, it's something which you all do. I'm not instructing you to do this and that and this and that. We will have to collaborate to make it fly, quite likely. Okay, we're already 10 minutes over. Any other comments from anyone? No AOB. So then thank you very much, everyone, for your time and for your evening, especially our professionals. I much appreciated finding it. And then we'll catch up next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Good night, everyone.